Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And this week, we're going to tackle topics like when it's too emotional to be casual, sleeping with your ex, and the irrationality of jealousy. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners, relationship advice people. We just have microphones and people who want to listen to us. And those are the only things that matter in this crazy world we're living in.
Yes, Sam and I are not professionals, nor are we relationship experts. So please take our advice as you see fit. We are only here to offer our ever humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs on the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, Sam, welcome to this week's episode. Hello.
Oh my God, thank you. I love it when you welcome me to my own podcast.
This week's check-in topic is inspired by some real life musings that I had yesterday. Yesterday, Willow and I had sushi for dinner, ordered some takeout, and I was having sushi with a glass of white wine. And that always makes me think, that combination particularly always makes me think of this person from my past that was sort of this unrequited friendship, love, will they, won't they, Ross and Rachel sort of bullshit that went on in my early 20s. They were a dear friend of mine, but also I always wanted to date them and kiss them. And all of our friend group thought that we were going to end up married together. And that's kind of the narrative that we talked about our friendship with. Both him and I.
Sure.
And so he introduced me to sushi, and I think he was one of the first people to I had white wine with. Anyway, so I was thinking about him when I was eating sushi and sort of talking casually with Willow about the first time I had sushi and what I thought about it. And it made me think about this person in my life who at one point in time was important to me, but who I don't necessarily feel saw the best me, At the time in my life, I, was very emotionally anxious and needy and really wanted affirmation and desire and was just generally chaotic.
Sure.
But, and so was he, right? We were in our early 20s, whatever. But I guess most importantly, I just feel especially from this work on the podcast, I know myself and understand my past actions infinitely more now than I ever did when I was in this situationship or entanglements with him. And in the years after, when we had a friendship that had nothing to do with our with that sort of romantic side of our relationship. And that there's this real grief in me that wants so badly to be known as the healed and more chill version of myself.
For sure.
By him. I have no interest in having a relationship, obviously, with him, and I have no interest in making him want me, or I don't know, it's not that I miss this person. It's that there's this grief in me that he will never know this refined person that I am. And he'll never know that I know exactly why I was so batshit crazy back then. And, and I guess what I'm bringing to the podcast table today is just that idea, the grief that people will never really know the real us currently, I guess. And I thought that's something we could sort of dive into.
Yeah. No, I think that is a really common thing that I think a lot of people probably experience of I want you to see that I am healed now, right? I'm not that same person that hurt you or that same person that was so intense or so unhealthy in how I did the things that I did with you. And part of it is I think part of it is like absolution. Like you kind of like want to go and be like, see, look, I did the work. And so I know that I would never do this to you again if we were in the same situation.
Yes.
And I think part of it also is a little bit like a little braggy, right? Of like, see, look, I'm enlightened. You knew me then, but like look what you're missing out now. Yeah.
I think it's, for me too, it definitely triggers a part of me that panics when I am out of control of the stories of myself, you know, when I cannot control the narratives or sway the voters, if you will, you know. It's just, I'm bringing this to the podcast to talk about, not because I want to reach out to this person or have like this absolving conversation. I'm not going to. I've like promised myself that I don't need to do that for myself, you know, like that I can just be secure in the fact that that was a time of my life. Not all people are for us, and he doesn't dictate whether or not I am, I don't know, healed or moved on or smarter now. You know, his knowledge of that doesn't dictate it. And also, I guess what I'm bringing to the table is just that is uncomfortable no matter what. Like there's discomfort in this. And I think when we talk about like closure or like moving on, there's like this implied sense that there is peace, you know, in the end. There's an implied sense that like things will feel better when you've accepted it or whatever. And I guess I just want to talk about how like it still feels a little uncomfortable. It still feels a little sad and frustrating to know that like I might not ever get to rectify that part of my story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it begs the question of like who the healing is for, right? Because if it was like for us and only us, then like we wouldn't feel this need to like show other people it. And maybe that's like a good remembering is like, this like healing isn't for this man. The healing was for me, right? Or the changes in behavior. And trusting yourself to know too that like no one knows us, right? Like no person outside of us is ever going to know us as deeply as we think that they possibly can, right? And so like even Willow doesn't know the true extent of the healing that you've gone through, right? Like
exactly.
Peter doesn't know, our friends don't know. And so then the question is like, so why this man, right? Why is this man holding some sort of secret knowledge of me that I need to disprove in some way? Like, why is that important? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but like,
you want me to answer it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, and I was saying this to Willow.
Therapy for Sierra. That's the check-in.
Yeah. I think it's because he triggered my most core wounds in that he was somewhat secure and somewhat avoidant, and I was desperately anxiously attached, especially at that time in my life.
For sure.
That was also before I like moved consciously between partners. Like I just wanted to be loved so badly that like the fact that he like would say that he loved me, but that we were never in a relationship together. Like it triggered, like I just couldn't handle it, you know, like
for sure.
I couldn't handle the middle groundness. And because of that, I think there's always this part of me that's like wanting to prove my worthiness, you know, wanting to be like, I totally get why you didn't want me then. I don't need you to want me now, but like I'm cool now. Yeah. You know, like there's definitely a wound there. Don't get me wrong.
You definitely do want me for sure.
Yeah. Because I'm so cool and chill.
Myself, right?
Yeah. Now that I'm married and I have a baby and I'm healed.
You can't have me, but like, don't you want this?
Yeah. So I did age really well. Okay. I finally learned how to draw my eyebrows on.
Oh my God. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, like, do you have something like this that sits in the back of your head that like this desire to rewrite someone's understanding of you?
Yeah, I think so. It's like work related though.
That's real. That's real.
Which I feel like is really indicative of our Enneagram types. Where you're like, I want to prove that I'm lovable, and I'm like, I want to prove that I'm competent.
Yes. Deeply accurate. Yeah.
Where no, like I have people I worked with or bosses that I've had where I would like I want to be like, hey, but look at me now. Like I was kind of a mess when I worked with or for you. But now, look how good I can do things.
Yeah. Are you talking about me? Because I used to be your boss. That's what this whole friendship is. It's like a redemption story for your competency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, but I think, I think what you're saying isn't unfamiliar to me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like you just had like a very concrete example of it. And I don't think I've had one in a while. Probably because I like don't run into people anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that it's, I've definitely experienced it before where I'm like, I want to prove to you, but I think that mine is a little bit more vindictive than yours is, right? Like, it is like this feeling of like, look who's the mess now, buddy. Right? Like it was me, but now clearly it's you because I am really put together.
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm sure there's vindictiveness like in me somewhere, but just showing up in a different way. Like if we could like say like use a word that had less like spiky connotations.
Sure.
It is truly saying like, look who you didn't love. Look how fucking lovable I am now. But like maybe with a little less sass and more like patheticness. But again, like our Enneagrams, like I'm like,
for sure.
Look how lovable I am. Desperate. Anyway, like, I think I've said this, but just to reiterate, like, this is not something that's like weighing on my heart every day. I don't think about this person. I was reminded of them because of some food I ate. And also I know, I agree. I think this must be relatable, and I'm going to spend the next couple days just thinking about how can you settle into that discomfort? Because it's not that it's going to be comfortable once you reach this like healing threshold. It's about leaning into the discomfort of some people will never truly know us fully, or they will have their version of their understanding of us or their version of the story of us forever. And we can never edit that story. We can never rewrite it. Like we can't touch that, you know. And how do you sit with that discomfort? I think part of it is just the affirmation that my healing and my lovability is not confirmed by external sources, especially external sources who are not in the present day arena with me, who are walking around with an outdated definition of who I am. Mm-hmm. And
Absolutely.
It's not about correcting the definition, right? Like I don't feel an urge to reach out to this person because I know that is me just manically trying to feel better about a discomfort that I just have to learn how to accept instead of learn how to change, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, because his perception of you doesn't define you. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with past you and like the things that you did, and also like his own world, right? Like his own understanding of things.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with you in this moment. And it really never had anything to do with you. But especially now that he hasn't spoken to you in however many years or seen anything that you've been doing. Maybe he's like an avid fan of this podcast though, and is like secretly obsessed with you.
Here's another great opportunity to remind everyone, including myself, that like people are not thinking about you the way that you think they're thinking about you.
Yep.
And I would even like put money on the fact that like he has regrets about that time.
Probably.
That he feels ashamed about certain things, and that like this is not just all on me and my perceived brokenness.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the check-in topic for today. Sierra's fucking therapy time. Also, God bless my fucking wife for me always processing my past relationships in front of her. It takes a fucking secure son of a bitch to be married to me. She's great.
Also, So Willow sent me a tiny little Oscar statuette in celebration of our 200th anniversary or 200th episode. Very cute, very charming. There's a sticky note in it. Yes, exactly. There's a sticky note on it though that said like, congrats on the 200th episode. And also like, if you get bored or something, like you can always look at how big of a butt this Oscar statue has.
Yes.
And I pulled it out and I like laughed and then I handed it to Peter and then he immediately looked at the statue and was like, ooh. And
Booty.
I was like, oh my God, you two are just the same person. The exact same sense of humor.
That's so cute. If you want to know what Sam's talking about, you can go to our YouTube and watch a video of this episode. I'm holding up the statue in the
show the butt
video camera. Show the butt. Okay, it's a booty.
It's a booty. It's very defined. It made me wonder if like the actual Oscars have butts like that.
Maybe. All right, let's get into this week's letters. All right, our first letter comes to us from Intimacy Vampire, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the Bermuda Love Triangle. Dear JBU, I have been a hopelessly devoted listener for the last couple years. Your show has been particularly helpful as I have been trying to maneuver through the emotional chaos that is my open/long distance relationship. I have been with my partner, he, him, for 4.5 years, and for the last 2 years, I've been living abroad on and off. While we are in different countries, we have had an open relationship to help assuage the loneliness and sexual frustration. The issue that I have consistently run into is that I'm an intimacy vampire, basically incapable of having, quote, casual relationships with people that I've become involved with. That is very relatable to me. This has led to a lot of heightened emotions, followed by myself getting ghosted. I have recently become involved with someone, he, him, let's call him Jim, who I feel uniquely connected to. As soon as we started talking, it was clear that our brains operated on the same wavelength, and conversations were always easy and stimulating. In addition to that, we are really good at having sex together. I love that sentence.
Me too. I like
the word phrasing.
It's so good.
And we're really good at having sex together. I love it. I'm going to go tell that to my wife later.
No, I love it because it's like, it's not that we're good at having sex. It's like, we're good at having sex together.
It makes
like,
sense.
Separately, maybe not, but together, it's just, it works out really well.
That can be a check-in topic in itself. Like when you don't feel like you had the best sex that you could have with someone and it like haunts you. Do you have that in your life? Because I for sure do.
I 100% do. Where I'm like, I really fucked that up. And now that person has an idea of me.
That I can't correct without like acting on infidelity. Be like, hit up this person and be like, listen, my past self, I just was performative. I'm much more healed. And I'd love to show you exactly how healed I can just get down with.
How great we could have sex. We're not going to do it, but I just want you to know that we could do it.
Sam, we are toxic today. This is toxic. We are the villains. Okay. Anyway, okay. He has known, Jim has known about my situation from the get-go, but it was also very clear that he would rather be able to actually date me. We have tried to set up better boundaries to keep things more friends with benefits and have talked about being on a trajectory towards transitioning to friendship, especially as he continues to date others. However, a couple of your recent letters have asked for advice on how to deal with being in his type of situation. One where the letter writer has a love interest who is also interested in them, but the love interest is in a relationship. Your response has always been that that person should get out of that situation because it is not an emotionally healthy place for them to be. These letters have me racked with guilt. I worry that my relationship with Jim is not healthy for him, and it makes me feel like I should end things. However, I also believe that he's an adult man with agency, and if he's willing to continue our dynamic in this capacity, then it isn't my responsibility to end things on his behalf. As it is, he is actively choosing to be with someone who is actively choosing not to be with him. Thank you, Virgie Tovar, for framing this framing device. Yeah, I love that too. So what do I do? Should I let things unfold as they have been, telling myself that he is capable of making his own choices? Is it possible for us to transition to friendship, or will this dynamic always feel too emotionally fraught? Any perspective you can offer would be most welcome. Thank you for all of your insights. I know. Good one. All right. Thank you, Intimacy Vampire, for this letter and for listening for all of these years. I think this is a great opportunity to remind, Sam and I and our wonderful listeners that the advice that we give on this show, like everything in life, isn't one size fits all. It is always meant to be flexible, and it's always meant to be applied with your own personal insight that we don't have, that we don't have access to. Right. And most importantly, your own inner wisdom and intuition. You're right. This man does have agency, and it sounds like you're being as transparent as possible. So I guess don't take our advice to other people. That is advice to that person as best as we can in that moment. Don't necessarily take that advice to think that you are a bad person or to add to this anxiety spiral. And at the same time, in this situation, we can move. I would suggest moving forward with as much unapologetic forthcoming and transparency, even if it interrupts the intimacy and magic and intensity of your current situation. And by that, I mean, I'm talking to you specifically as an intimacy vampire, because that's a phrase that I relate to. I could imagine if I was in your shoes, and I love intimate relationships. I love intense conversations. I would prefer intimate relationships over non-intimate relationships. So I could imagine even though I've told this person that I'm in a relationship and that this is not a long-term thing that could happen, I wouldn't want to bring it up again because I wouldn't want to ruin the magic of the moment. Sure. I wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable or whatever. I could just see myself doing that. And if we are alike, Intimacy Vampire, I'm going to ask you to push through that desire and make things uncomfortable repeatedly. You have to be unapologetically forthcoming again and again. You're right. You're not responsible for upholding his boundaries and making choices for him. He's an adult man. Mm-hmm. And also, you are responsible for continually painting the accurate portrait of what this is. Wholly. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I also want to say, I don't know who told you that your desire for intimacy was vampiricism, right? I don't think that. Yeah, right.
I don't think this is me and it's bad.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting to get to know people intimately or to want your sexual relationships to also have emotional intimacy in them.
That is so real.
And I don't think that your desire for it or that you're asking it of people is makes you sucking the life out of them, right? I think it just makes you a person who likes intimacy, emotional, physical, all of those. And that's not a bad thing. So I want to also absolve you of this idea that you have that you're somehow too much, or you're asking for too much or taking too much in your relationships with people.
How dare you?
Right?
How dare you make me love myself more?
I know,
how dare
right?
How dare you make me have more compassion for myself?
I know, it's a bummer. And I also think that Sierra's right too, that you are in constraints in terms of your relationship, in terms of how much you can get to, or how deeply you can get into relationship with people who aren't your primary partner. And I think Sierra's right that you need to be absolutely honest about that. And you need to trust that this man is an adult who can take care of himself, right? If you're being honest with him and you are doing the things that seem to make both of you happy, or at least seem to be working for both of you, it's not your job to decide whether or not this is the relationship for him. That's his job. And I think it is a little bit paternalistic to think that you know better than him what he wants out of this relationship. That said, like Sierra said, if you're not being honest about the constraints of this relationship, that's a different story. And I want you to start being radically honest about that.
Yep.
But it sounds like he knows what he's getting into. And it sounds like he's making active choices to be in this relationship with you. He knows whether or not it's working for him. And if he's doing it in ways that are not working for him, right? Like it's his job to figure that out. You can for sure have conversations with him about this, right? Like you can be like, hey, this is the parameters. This is what we're working with. Are you okay with it? Like, how are you feeling about it? Right. And maybe you'll both come to the conclusion that this isn't working for you. But I don't know. Maybe he's like, I'm not dating anyone else who's working for me right now. And I really like this person. And so I want to be doing this thing for however, until I find someone who's going to be more available for me. I don't know. I'm not in his body. And guess what? Neither are you. So you don't know him or what he's going through. You can be curious for sure and ask questions and try and work together to figure this out. But it's not your job to end this relationship for him when it sounds like, at least from the letter, like there were no like alarm bells going off when I read this.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know if you're being honest. And he's like, this is kind of working for me. I don't see what the issue is.
Yeah, and building off of Sam's suggestion about being curious, I think having sort of regular check-ins where you are unapologetically transparent, right? Mm-hmm. Like, again, checking in again and again. But also asking him what he needs from you in order to feel empowered to eventually end this relationship. It sounds like you're having these conversations, but it's like, you can say to him, this is where this is going. This is the trajectory. I love being intimately close with you, both physically and emotionally. But again, this has this timeline. This is this sort of expiration date. How would you like me to go about acting around you to reinforce that this is the way our relationship is? Yep. What do you need from me? Do you want me to end it? Like you could say that. Do you want me to stop seeing you because this is the reality of the relationship? And if you don't feel like you can pull the plug and you need to, then I can, that's the scenario in which I could see you breaking up with him.
Yep.
Is like, if he's like, I would need you to end it, even though I think it's the best thing for me. Then you can do that. Like,
for sure.
To your point about him being an adult man, which I totally agree with and have repeated several times so far on this show. Adults need things from other people all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Like I needed Sam to take my phone and block my ex for me, right? And I am hypothetically an adult woman with agency as well. So like maybe he does need you to like. I guess that's where like our advice can intersect, is that like, he might need your assistance in employing the best and healthiest boundaries for him, or healthiest choices for him. So like maybe you could be curious about what that could look like, or like, how you can assist him. And also he's a grown man and he's choosing to be in this relationship that hypothetically is, founded on respect and transparency. So I think you're fine. I think you're fine.
Absolutely. But these are conversations that you can have with him, right? Like you don't have to make this decision on your own on his behalf, right? You can be curious, you can dig in and say, and through that conversation, right, it may come to a point where you are like, actually, like, I think that we want different things out of this relationship, so I'm going to find someone else who's going to be able to do this, right? And that's okay. But I don't want you to sit there beating yourself up for having emotions and then breaking up with this man because you think that your emotions are so toxic for him that he like can't handle it and just isn't telling you, right? Like that is not what I want. I want you all to be in honest and open communication with each other to decide like, is this working for both of you? And I want you to receive and believe if he says, yes.
Receive and believe.
Right? Like I want you to hear that and trust that he, again, is capable of agency. He's capable of making his own decisions. And that doesn't mean he has to do everything alone, but he's also capable of asking for help if he needs it, right? Like I think I think it's important to remember that and see him as like a full, authentic human who is complicated and coming to this relationship for many different reasons, some of which may be helpful, some of which may not be, but that he is able to think about this with the same amount of complexity and nuance as you are thinking about this situation.
One more thing before we move on to the next letter, I was just sitting here thinking like, well, what do these conversations look like? And so here are some questions. Maybe we can think of them rapid fire, Sam, that you can ask like, if my boyfriend comes to visit, how would that make you feel? And would you be comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with me going to my boyfriend's family for the holidays and never meeting your family? Fleshing out what this actually looks like in practice and sort of making a strategy for how to deal with these things together as a team. You can approach this as a team to sort of figure out where those sharp edges are, I guess, and where that potential conflict is. Other questions could be like, okay, so if we are friends and not having a physical relationship, do you think we can hang out one-on-one or do we have to be in groups? This is just to help you, give you some scripts in terms of like how to move forward with this transparency and intention, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you can even say some of the concerns that you put in your letter here, right?
Yeah.
Where you can say, I really enjoy our emotional intimacy. I really enjoy our physical intimacy. And I have this partner that I'm committed to. And my concern is that you're in over your head. And my concern is that I'm in over my head. So what are we going to do in that knowledge? Is this something that is sustainable for both of us, right? And I don't think that that's an unreasonable conversation to have with him or an unreasonable thing to say to him. Yeah. Because your concerns are valid, right? They don't need to be just held by you. You can share some of this with him and help and come to an agreement with each other about what your relationship's going to look like or not look like, depending on what comes out of these talks with each other. But this is intimacy, baby. So if you like intimacy, you should love this.
Episode title with the thumbs up emoji.
I love it.
All right, my dear intimacy vampire. Thank you so much for listening and for writing. We hope this helps.
Thank you so much. We love you. All right. Our next letter comes from Cheap Whiskey, whose pronouns are she, her, and who is writing from Guilty Town. They just gave me a key to the city. Hi, Sam and Tiara. This is what this says. Like Sam and the fish. Tiara. And then the tiara. Or tiara, I guess.
Tiara, like the crown.
Yes, no, but I think some people pronounce it tiara.
Really? Mm-hmm. Learn new things every day.
Absolutely. All right. Okay, besties, let's get into this shit show I've put myself into. I feel like I have literally no one to blame but myself and Cheap Whiskey. I, a 27-year-old woman, has just made the toxic move of hooking up with my ex. Let's call him X. Now, if he were just my ex, then I wouldn't have thought any more of the situation and had a good old hit it and quit it, hump it and get it out of my system, so to speak. But I like hump it and get it out of my system.
Yeah, totally.
It's a great, so catchy, you know?
Yeah, let's put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, it's ours now. Sorry, Cheap Whiskey. But it's more complicated than that. And this is where I feel like I'm in the wrong and have a mountain of guilt. Some context. My ex and I have a child together. We work great as co-parents and can be friendly. We were not good as partners, both wanting opposite in life. And by the end of our relationship, had both said and done a lot of regrettable damage to each other. So this is not a block ex. I'm literally legally not allowed to. It sucks.
Perfect example that our advice is not one size fits all.
Exactly.
Like obviously, don't block your co-parenting ex.
Yeah, that is not allowed. So a few nights ago, a longtime friend of his came into town. She and I have been close since we were first introduced. I was invited over to hang out and catch up at his place. People never go to an ex's house. There were lots of clap emojis between those words. Anyway, I went over with only intentions of catching up with that friend, and that's what we did for hours. It was so oddly comforting to be back in a place with people you haven't seen in forever and just be yourself. X had been kind and respectful all night, gave us space to chat, and would join in every now and then. So here's where the guilty pickle starts. After a few hours, we all decide to have a drink and enjoy the outdoor cooler evening weather. X and friend also indulged in some giggle cabbage, which, let me tell you, it took me a long time to figure out what that meant.
I fucking knew it would.
I was like, giggle cabbage? I was like, is that a typo? I was like, giggle cribbage? Like, were they playing a card game? And then I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
Pure soul.
So we are all just goofing and talking about old times. Well, one drink leads to three, which leads to all of us sharing cheap whiskey shots like bottom of the barrel whiskey. Felt like I blinked and it was 3 a.m. Friend has long since fallen asleep on the couch, and X and I are talking. It's a good conversation, the ones that make you question why you broke up in the first place and indulge in the fantasy of getting back together. The conversation turns flirty, and X says, I don't have to leave. I am more than welcome to stay, even if it's just to sleep. Thus, pickle number 1, I wanted to stay. I wanted the sex. Pickle number 2, X has a girlfriend he's been with for over a year, a girlfriend who on a few occasions has displayed jealous tendencies whenever she's at drop-off or pickups. She doesn't like the co-parenting relationship we have and the amount that we communicate. A girlfriend that by all accounts loves the shit out of his dumbass. A girlfriend who was at work and unable to be there with us all. Pickle 3, he is not in love with her. I know it's a cliche thing that everyone says, but I truly know this man. I know when he's in love and she ain't it. Pickle 4, I can't stand cheaters and being cheated on. We're in a lot of pickles. Pickle 4, I can't stand cheaters and being cheated on, but in this moment, I'm not even thinking about Squirrel Friend. I said yes to staying. We had amazing sex. Comfortable, non-judgmental, feel-good, fun sex. The most comfortable I've been being naked with a person for years. He's seen a bowling ball-sized baby come out of me, for God's sake. And it was just so good, guys. Ended up cuddling and telling me how much he does miss me, miss us, and miss our family together. Punch right in the feels. Pickle number 5, I can't even blame the drinks. By the time we were naked, I was sober. Now to put the lid on this jar. My question is, should I feel guilty? After the fact, I can't seem to forgive myself for putting another person unwittingly in potential pain. I feel like a horrible person. I broke the unspoken girl code. Even if I know ultimately X is not going to be staying with his squirrel friend long term, I feel like a homewrecker. I feel guilty in that I don't want to lead X along. He wants us to be a family. He wants more kids, and he would be happy to be together if I came back. We are going to be in each other's lives for a long time, and I don't want him holding out hope for me. I feel like an all-around crap bag of a person. Crap bag of a person. I love that. I intentionally stay out of X's life besides co-parenting for a reason, and one night of familiarity, fun, ease, and all the walls I worked so hard to put up come crashing down with force. I know it takes 2 to do the spicy dance. I even offered a few chances to back out. He did as well, but nope. We are both consenting adults who make our own choices, but damn, am I bad at adulting. Final thoughts. Do I feel guilty? Fuck yes. Do I regret it? I don't, and I hate that. This whole letter is a mess. If you read it, I'm sorry. I promise I'm not as bad of a person as I am in this situation, with literally all the love I can offer and wishing nothing but the best for you all. Cheap whiskey.
Oh, thank you so much for writing and for listening. Cheap whiskey. Yeah, there were so many good one-liners in that letter. Like, we're gonna make t-shirts that say "spicy dance" next. You know,
absolutely, yes. A crap bag of a person is my favorite one.
All right, so there's a lot going on in this letter. It's a mixed bag of lived experience and emotions. Do I think you're a bad person? Absolutely not.
No.
Do I want you to feel shame and internalize that shame to become a narrative about yourself? Absolutely not.
No, I don't.
We all make selfish human choices. Not even selfish. Like that's bold of me to put that out there. But like, we all make human choices that often don't reflect the morals or the values or the, I don't know, vision for our future that we want to uphold. Do I think that you would feel worse if you maybe like inhabited the empathy for the other woman a little bit more? Maybe. Or, whatever. I'm not here to shame you. You made a choice that you see has ramifications, right? Like it keeps that closed door open with the ex. It potentially hurts this other woman. It can, yeah. So you made a messy choice, period. Like, what do we do now? What do we do when we make messy choices? Because life is filled with messy choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. What do we do?
Okay, I thought you were gonna answer your own question.
You're a co-host for a reason. I set them up and you spike them down.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to remember that, like, that you can feel guilty about this, right? You can feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done this, or, oh, I regret this, or, I mean, you say you don't regret it, but oh, do I wish it had happened in this way, or whatever it is. Like, those are all really normal things to feel. And I think guilt is a really painful emotion that we often want to like get out of our bodies. But guilt also teaches us something, right? It tells us like, I did something that was not in alignment with my values. And that is something to learn from, right? To do differently next time, or to atone for the wrongs that I've caused people and myself.
Right.
But like Sierra said, I don't want this to turn into shame, right? Like, you're not a terrible person. You're not a home wrecker, whatever that word means, right? Like, you don't need to take this and make it a part of your identity, right? This is a choice you made. It is not who you are.
Yes.
And I want you to feel guilty. Like, honestly, like, I do, because throughout this letter, right? Like, you tell us that all of these different things are in play, and that this was the wrong decision to make because of all of these different reasons. And I want you to feel the guilt of that. I want you to feel like, oof, yeah, I should do something different. I'm going to need to change my behavior. I'm going to need to take intentional steps to make sure that this thing that I did, that I feel guilty about, doesn't cause more harm to the people involved in it, right?
Not because we want you to feel like a bad person. No. Not because we judge you for this choice, but because you're telling us this choice is not in alignment with the life you want to live.
Absolutely. And guilt is one of those emotions that can help us make good steps to getting back in alignment with where we want to be and how we want to reflect that. Because I want you to have an honest to goodness conversation with your ex about not getting back together, right? I want you to also like recognize and put up those boundaries again between you and this ex, because if you are not interested in getting back together with him and doing the things that he wants to do, he is not the person for you. Right. And I want this guilt.
He's not your spicy dance partner.
He's not your spicy dance partner, unfortunately, although it sounds like it was great sex because he saw a bowling ball come out of your hoo-ha.
Hoo-ha, Sam?
Yeah.
A hoo-ha?
Do you not
really?
like that? Do you not like that?
I'm going to call your penis a wiggle worm.
Great. Basically is. It looks like a worm and it wiggles. So.
Oh my God. I don't know what worms you're looking at these days, but continue.
Right. And like that all makes sense.
Yeah, I love that.
What?
No, I just love the transition back. You did it so smoothly, but then you're like, looks like a worm and it wiggles. And here's some more great advice.
Here's some great advice. I want this guilt to propel you to getting back in alignment with what your values are and what you know to be true about yourself and your relationship. I don't want it to propel you into this like self-defeating hatred, right? Like that's not a productive place to be.
Yeah.
And it's not productive in terms of like solving the problem that this situation has created.
Yes.
Yes. So like, yeah, did you do something that maybe you shouldn't have? Yeah, cool. Guess what? I do that all the time, right? Sierra does that all the time. We do this all of the time, right? We do things that aren't in alignment with our values all the time. The point is to not take that and say, and therefore I'm a bad person, and stew in that and then use that as an excuse to not take ownership for the mistakes, but instead to say, oof, that one didn't feel quite right. I need to try something different. I'm not damaged by this. I'm not a horrible person. I just made a mistake, as everyone does.
Right. I want to steer this ship off course for a second. Because I really like what you said about guilt is one of the emotions that we can use to propel us towards change or propel us to be in more alignment with our values or our visions for our life. And I want to maybe just tangentially talk about other emotions that can be used in that way. Like, if we feel anger at our past or anger at our other people or ourselves, like I always think about like the revenge that we fantasize about getting on exes. Like, I'm gonna get so hot, and I'm gonna be so healed. What are some other emotions that we can use as tools or like training wheels towards growth, but also don't ultimately define us, don't these emotions like anger or regret, like they don't mean that we're a good person, or a bad person or a broken or a healed person, but we can use them as motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they are like primary emotions too, right? Like they're the ones that can like burn out, right? They're the ones that can propel us to things. And we may try and use other things to get away from those feelings because they're uncomfortable, but they can help they can help fuel the change that needs to happen, right? As opposed to emotions like, he doesn't love this woman, and so therefore this doesn't matter. Or like these emotions of like, but the sex was so good, so like it was so worth it, right? Like those are all things that are possibly true, but they are like off ramps from recognizing that you've done something that isn't in alignment with what you want your future to be, and that the point is to get back onto the road and not find these off ramps into places where we can sort of bury the guilt, right? Like not even process through it, just like put it over here and be like, oh, I don't need to think about that because of all of these different reasons or explanations for what happened.
Yeah. And I remember like 3 billion episodes ago, you said something that I loved about how it's okay to be, this is another or like mildly tangential, but you said something about how in a breakup, it's okay to be angry and to use anger as a vessel temporarily, or like as long as you need to, but like that you can use anger to justify putting up a harder boundary than your heart wants you to. Yes. Or you can use anger to hold on to your right to feel sad, to your hurt, and to not let somebody back in or whatever. And I think that's a great example of using an emotion in an effective way until it no longer has its purpose. So regret, use this regret to steer your ship, use this regret to be like, you know what, like that felt good. It was pleasurable. It felt easy. It felt comfortable. It's not in alignment with the life that I want. And I know it could potentially really hurt a couple people, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to use this emotion to right my ship again, to have a hard conversation with my co-parent. I'm going to use this regret to double down on what it means to like say, you know what, it would feel so good to have sex right now. It would feel so good to not have to like go home alone. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to lean into what I know would be more in alignment with what I want for my life. Mm-hmm. And then let that regret go, because I'm not out here condoning or condemning cheating. I like, that is not my job. And it would be like high and mighty of me to do that.
Yeah, it would be real hypocritical.
As like a former cheater. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
But I don't want you to, it doesn't serve you and your growth. It doesn't serve your health to be like, I'm a fucking terrible person and to internalize this forever. But you can use it in the moment, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, because when we internalize guilt and turn it to shame, then we can continue to do things that aren't in alignment with our values because we're just bad people, right?
Bingo. That's it.
Yep, right? Of course I'm going to do this because I'm a bad person. Of course I'm going to do this because I'm a cheater. Of course I'm going to do this because I'm a homewrecker, right? Like we make it part of our identity and therefore it's not changeable, right?
Yeah.
But you're not a homewrecker. You're a person who did something that was maybe not super helpful for them or for the person that they were doing it with, right? I'm like really trying to not say the word mistake because like that is like such a fraught term.
No, yeah.
Right?
It doesn't serve it because it's like, it's done. It was a choice. You made a choice.
Yeah, it's not but it's not in and of you, right? Like it's not inherent to you because it's like part of your identity. It's just something that you did. And you have the capacity to say, this is making me feel really bad. It's making me feel bad for these people who are involved with it. So I'm going to apologize for it. I'm going to be clear about what my boundaries are, and I'm going to try not to do it again. And I'm capable of that because I'm not a homewrecker. I'm just a person who did a thing, right?
Right. I'm sorry.
Are you okay?
Spencer, cut this. Every time you say it, because I'm not a homewrecker, for some reason, my brain goes, I just wrecked a home. Like, I'm not a runner. I'm a person who runs. And you said it twice, and in my head, it's like, I'm not a homewrecker. I just wreck
people's homes. Yeah. That twist of phrase doesn't quite work for that one.
And I also don't believe that about this letter writer. Anyway. No. Anyway, this is all to say we love you. We don't think you're a bad person. We just think you're in a little bit of a misalignment phase. So lean into those uncomfortable feelings until they no longer serve you or until they start telling you lies about yourself, and have some hard conversations with your co-parent about how to stop this from happening in the future because you don't want to be with them.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. I was gonna say, or maybe you do, just to throw off everything at the end. And
the divorced child in me, the wounded divorced child, was like, well, maybe you want to be with him because it felt so good. But I would never.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Anyway, thank you for writing. We love you. We hope that this helps.
I gotta say this as a divorced child, my life is way fucking healthier with my parents not together. So True. don't True. Take the wounded little baby in me. Don't take that girl's advice. Take the grown adult who's like, yeah, I love that my parents are adults because they're way healthier now.
Yes.
I mean, I love that my parents are divorced, not adults.
And both.
They're fine. Sam, we got to right our ship because it's off course
absolutely.
Right now.
We are not in alignment with our values.
We love you. We love you, cheap whiskey. Okay, thank you for writing.
Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
All right. The final letter of this episode comes to us from Jealous and Afraid, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from my room. Hi, Sierra and Sam. First of all, thank you so much for all the love you put into answering listeners' questions. I can't tell you how truly transformed I am because of your work. And even if you don't answer this letter, I feel so lucky to be able to write to you. You feel like friends to me, and even trying to imagine what you'd say to me in my circumstance has been helpful.
Oh.
Well, that's fucking sweet as shit.
It is.
I am writing because I can't get out of this rut. A little bit of background. I'm a 28-year-old queer person of color and a child of divorce. Oops. Sorry. Me too. My dad had an affair with a colleague and left me and my mom when I was 7. Both of them were and are emotionally immature immigrants who were just trying their best, and I grew up with a lot of relational trauma, cementing a preoccupied, anxious attachment style, and just general anxiety. Yay. I've done a lot of healing throughout the years, which has been helpful in growing and strengthening a healthy, true love with my girlfriend of almost 4 years. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is very social, securely attached, emotionally intelligent, who tells me all the time that she loves me. We have a stable, nourishing relationship, and we're going to get engaged this year. We are ready to build a life together, and I've told Sarah about my healing journey and my triggers, and she's always had nothing but love and support from me, and I can't wait for our big gay wedding. And we've moved across the country to New York City together. I'm excited because I have some friends and family in New York and Connecticut, but also stressed and afraid because I've lived in California for the last 10 years. But moving with Sarah has made everything feel easier, more exciting, and safe. But there's this thing. Sarah started her job in New York City earlier than me, so she went ahead of me a couple months ago. This is where my problem began. Sarah made a new friend at work in New York City. Let's call her Anna. Sarah started talking to me about Anna early on after she moved, and God, is Sarah super into Anna. Anna is kind, upbeat, social, and from the photos Sarah sends me of the two of them, beautiful. They've become really close, and because Anna works in different but related department at their job, they hang out all the time. Early on, while I was still in California, Sarah made sure to slip in that Anna has a girlfriend, probably because Sarah knew that I would probably be curious, if not downright anxious about it all. And boy, was I anxious as hell, especially when I would hear about some of the deep emotional conversations they were having, or when I found out that their families shared deep, authentic connection to their Irishness because they just so happened to both be second-generation immigrants. And I have a lot of internalized racist thoughts about this because I'm Iranian, and I tell myself that Sarah secretly would prefer to be with a white Irish girl. Not great. But I figured once I moved to New York City, I would feel better once I met Anna, but I didn't. Anna is truly amazing, and I loved hanging out with her. She was so excited to meet me, and I could see why Sarah liked her so much, but I could not stop fixating on the possibility that Sarah secretly preferred Anna over me. Anytime Sarah would be texting Anna, I would do the sideways glance over her shoulder as if she would be texting something like, "Oh my God, I love you too. Let me get rid of this old ball and chain first," or something. And anytime Sarah would bring up Anna, I would feel this wave of anxiety and honestly, guys, dread that Anna would eventually be the end of the best relationship of my life. So I tried talking to Sarah about it. Because I was afraid of being too vulnerable, I couched it all in me being, quote, ungrounded and anxious from the move, and said that my relationship trauma feels the most activated because of all the new people we're meeting, without mentioning Anna specifically. Sarah, clearly feeling all the unsaid things, said, "Would it be helpful if I told you I don't have any romantic feelings for Anna?" To which I responded, "Yeah." And Sarah went on to say that she thought about it when they first started hanging out more and had a moment of anxiety, wondering if there was something there, but determined that she does not have romantic feelings for Anna. She said she feels very confident about this and also doesn't think Anna has romantic feelings for Sarah either. Sarah claims that Anna feels more like a sister to her and is just someone who became a fast and good friend, someone Sarah feels comfortable with, someone she's excited to have in her life. She said that she loves me the most and that she loves what we have and that she's excited to get married to me. She asked if there was anything she could do to support me, and I said more reassurance, affection, and love during this transitional time would be helpful, and Sarah was happy to provide that for me. But Sam and Sierra, I can't shake the feeling. It's honestly exhausting. What is happening to me? I can't get myself to trust Sarah, who I thought I had grown to trust so much over the years. Sarah has given me no real reason to doubt her, as long as you don't count the presumably totally innocent excitement to hang out with Anna, have me meet her, to text her and chat with her, etc. I'm even going so far to say to myself, well, it's weird that Sarah had a, quote, moment of anxiety about whether she had feelings for Anna. That should have been obvious from the start. Why did she even need to think about it and proclaim it to me like that, totally unprompted? And it's hard to reject thoughts like, quote, if given the chance, Sarah would totally choose Anna over me in a heartbeat. If Anna professed her love to Sarah, then she would leave me tomorrow. And guys, I'm really ashamed to say that I looked at Sarah's phone at their text thread, which was friendly, maybe a little intimate, but overall innocent. Despite that, I felt really triggered by it because Sarah's text to her sounded like text to me, supportive and upbeat and maybe even a little loving, but hopefully I'm projecting. And then I saw that Sarah told Anna that her very Irish mother told Sarah that we love Anna, probably because Sarah has been telling her parents about her so much. So add, quote, her parents would prefer Anna over me to the long list too, even though I know Sarah's parents love me. In all this anxiety, I'm afraid that I'll ruin my relationship with Sarah anyway, and I'll be alone in New York City. I need help. I'm spiraling, LOL. And I'll be able to afford therapy soon, but how can I help myself move past this right now? How can I trust Sarah, the love of my life? How can I help Sarah support me better? I really like Anna too and would love for her to be in our lives, but their intimate relationship makes me so anxious. How can I take their word for it and start actually being excited to have Anna in my life too? And the scariest question for me is, do you all think that maybe Sarah is actually being really shady and that I should think about breaking up with her? Any words of wisdom, comfort, encouragement, or tips are welcome. I know you all have talked about anxious attachment styles before, and I even listened to those episodes recently because of this. But if you could help a particularly distressed and anxious homegirl out, I would really appreciate it. All of my love, jealous and afraid.
Oh, jealous and afraid.
I know.
Thank you so much for writing to us about this. And we would love to help out a particularly distressed and anxious homegirl. That would be our dream.
I'd be honored.
Absolutely.
I would be honored. There's so much in this letter that I just want to dive into. I'm going to just start by saying there is nothing in this letter that makes me suspicious of your partner, and I absolutely do not think you should break up. I saw your little anxious mind go to that extreme, scary place. Yep. Because your anxiety is telling you, I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to get hurt. How can I prevent this hurt from happening? Well, I can leave her first, right? Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, like, that is an extreme response that your anxiety is voting for because your anxiety is unstable. If I'm like, I'm trying to like personify anxiety. Not that you're unstable, but like that your anxiety is over there saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, she's going to cheat on me. And if she's not cheating on me now, she will in the future. So like, how can I handle that? I can leave her so she can never cheat on me. You know, exactly. Like a maniacal little like anxiety troll. Right. Yeah, and we got to tell that anxiety troll to sit down.
Yeah, and just to like give that a thumb of approval, 100% agree that like there is nothing in this that is causing me any sort of alarm about whether or not Sarah is cheating on you. Like
even the intimacy of their friendship, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like it sounds like they're really close friends. It sounds like Sarah's being really honest with you about the extent of their relationship. It sounds like Anna really wants to get to know you, right? It's just like nothing about this. It feels like you're missing something that could indicate that you are being cheated on. And if that were happening, guess what? It wouldn't be your fault. Like it wouldn't, the fact that you stayed in relationship with her and like I think sometimes like our anxiety, especially if it's something that's like deeply trauma, like comes from a deep trauma place, right? Which I think is like, this is connected to the fact that your parents broke up in like a dramatic cheating situation. Right. Is that we sort of tell ourselves like, this has happened to me once and I couldn't predict it, right? So now I'm going to do all the things that I can do and it'll never happen to me again because I'll be able to see the signs and keep it from happening. So then if it happens again, that means that I did something wrong because I wasn't reading all of the signs right. And what I want to say to you is that like, there are absolutely no signs that anything is amiss. And also, if she is, then it's not that you didn't pick up on the signs, right? Like that didn't cause the cheating. That didn't cause the traumatizing moment. It's that like, she cheated, but she's not. Right. She's not cheating. Like to be clear, right? And it's not your job to find the signs of it in order to prevent that bad thing from happening, right? Like it's just your job to be in relationship with this person.
Yeah. In my notes, it says, let's figure out where this is coming from. ... We know exactly where it's coming from, you know? I want to also say like, let's look at your phrase, super into. You said she's super into Anna, right? I think something that I needed to hear and say to myself as an anxiously attached person dating a secure person is that my spouse, significant other, partner, whoever, whoever she is, that floozy, she is as emotionally rich and vast as I am. She has the capacity to care about things not only as much as I do and in such diverse ways. She can care about things in ways that I don't, like she has intimate friendships with people that like I don't have intimate friendships in the same way, right? I have my handful of very close friends and that's it. And my significant other can distribute and care about people, can distribute her love and care about people in a different way that I can, right? And that diversity, that, what's the word that we always use to say, like abundance?
Yeah.
That abundance.
That was the word I was going to use.
Yes. Is not a threat to her love for me.
Yeah.
And I know your anxious heart is tired. Like, oh my God, when you said it is exhausting, I felt for you so much because I know it is a physical and emotional labor that you are performing every day to like keep it together, to like to not let this mess that you're keeping inside of you spill out onto your day-to-day life, right? I know this is tiring to like keep it together. Something that helped me is just to say like, let's redefine this super into. She can be super into this person. She can feel seen intimately and vulnerably by this person. She can feel she could even feel attraction to this person. She can feel camaraderie. She can feel sisterhood. She can feel her humanity affirmed by this other person and still be affirmed by you the most or more or the same amount, but still want to be with you, right? Like, I think that's something that this like scarcity anxiety in me had to be told is that like, for some reason, maybe it was like my parents' divorce, or maybe it was the examples of love I saw in the media growing up. But I thought you could only love one person at a time. And if that love was spread out at all, it was diminished. It was diminishing me. Like I still want to be my partner's favorite person, right? And I still feel threatened by anything that looks like that love,
For sure.
But I had to learn and still tell myself repeatedly that my significant other is complex and emotionally rich, and her love for other people actually is not a threat to her love for me, right? Like we've been taught it was by many things in our childhood and by popular culture, et cetera.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Her love is abundant. Right?
Yeah.
It's not scarce, and you don't need all of it to be deeply loved by her.
Yeah.
You're not a bad person for having these feelings of anxiety or jealousy, right? Like a recurring theme in this episode, right? Like you're not a bad person for feeling this way. And these parts of you that are anxious and jealous are not unlovable, right? They are not things that you need to be ashamed of, right? Like you don't need to add that sort of layer of shame onto what are already really challenging emotions for you.
Right.
And I think that like it's, at least from what you've told me about the conversations that you've had with Sarah, it seems to me like Sarah is wanting to be supportive of you, knowing that this is something that's affecting you. So my encouragement for you is to bring a little bit of this out of the shadows and to bring it more fully into the fullness of the light of your relationship, right? Does that mean accusing her of cheating all the time? Absolutely not. That is not what I mean. What I mean is being able to name when some of this stuff is coming up for you so that you can, assuage your own stuff, but also that you give her the opportunity to help you, right? And affirm you and offer you the support that loving relationships can offer, right? So what does it look like for you to say something like, hey, I know that there's nothing going wrong or there's nothing going on that's like bad or not good. And I'm still having some feelings of discomfort about how close you are with Anna. Can you please just tell me that you still love me even as you love Anna at the same time, or even as you want to be close friends with Anna at the same time? And she'll probably say yes. I know that if Peter did that for me, I would be like,
Yes.
oh my God, absolutely. Yes, I do really love this friend that I have. And I love you and I want to be with you. And you are my partner, right? Like I'm here and I feel that you're going through that. And I'm so sorry that that's how you're feeling about this. But for me, there's enough love in me for both of us, right?
Yes.
And so I think that bringing some of this into the conversation might be helpful. I know that it sounds like that's really challenging for you in a lot of different ways. It sounds like there's like some indirectness in maybe how you communicate about this stuff. But I want you and Sarah to figure out how you can talk about some of this so that it doesn't feel like you're like this like monster hiding in the dark with all of these big bad
Right.
feelings that no one
Right.
can know about and that are somehow indicative that you're a horrible person, right? I want you to be able to say like these emotions are 100% understandable. Think about what you've been through, right? You watched your parents' marriage break up in infidelity, right? You have been told by the society that we live in that you are worth less because of the fact that you are Iranian, right? Like
Right.
you're in a world that has told you that you're worth less because of the fact that you're queer, right? Like all of this different stuff is like playing a role here. So of course, some of these feelings of insecurity, inadequacy are coming up for you. Doesn't mean that you're bad. Doesn't mean that they're like broken. It just means that they're coming up for you. So what are the ways that you can help have these types of conversations with the person who you love and who seems to love and want to support you dearly so that we can start rewriting some of the stories that we're telling ourselves about whether or not you're worth being in a relationship with? Because I know that you are, and it seems like Sarah knows that you are. So how can we help you know that in a more in a deeper way?
Yeah. And I think too, you write in your letter so perfectly. You say, I thought I trusted her. Like I thought I worked to trust her. And I want to like propose the perspective shift that you do trust her. This isn't about trust. This is about anxiety.
Yeah.
This is about intrusive, repetitive, cyclical thoughts that you're having a hard time harnessing. Mm-hmm. And that's just so relatable to me that it's your significant other has not given you reason to mistrust them. You are having a hard time managing how to manifest your trust, right? Like our trust it's becoming harder for you to choose the trust. It is not that you don't trust her. It is not that she is untrustworthy. Yep. It is that all of these hurdles, these additional stressors are coming on. So it's harder for you to access that trust. It's not that the trust isn't there, right? And I think about that in context of like looking at her phone, right? You saw the texts. They were friendly. From what you described, your girlfriend was exactly who your girlfriend is. Loving, bubbly, excited, right? That is the core of what you love about your partner, what you want to marry them for, right? And they were who you know them to be in their text messages. Yep. Again, that is not in the scarcity mindset. That is a threat to the bubbly, positive, loving person she is to you. But she is that person all the time. And you don't want her to just be that person to you. Like you love her infinitely for that, right? And your anxiety is going to tell you that you just didn't find the right text. Right? You didn't find the right conversation. And that if you
keep looking.
If you keep looking, I mean, we could look at our significant other's text for the rest of our lives. Like, I mean, that is something that I had to break because my last relationship was so fraught and unstable that like I constantly needed this. I always needed to check, right? Like I always needed to know. I needed to know because I was afraid of these conversations that were happening behind the curtain. And then when I got with my now wife, like I had to learn that what she told me was safe, was a safe place to be. And what I saw in her text messages, like the ones that I saw either from her showing me or those like sideways glances, right, were it. I could feed the beast and keep looking, but it's you're looking for something specific instead of looking for the stability, right? You're looking for the infidelity. You're looking for the heartbreak instead of looking at what is actually there, the security, the trustworthiness,
For sure.
And, Sam and I have said this in the past, and he kind of like hinted at this at the beginning of the letter, but like, we cannot date without the risk of being hurt. We cannot live without the risk of being crushed by the universe.
Yep.
Other people are inevitably going to hurt us. The world is going to hurt us, and we're going to hurt other people. This is a part of life. And I don't say that to be nihilistic, to like feed that anxiety beast in you. Instead, it is just a gentle reminder that no matter how trustworthy your partner is, there is still a risk of being hurt, because vulnerability and connection requires us to put it out there as a risk, requires us to say, here's my heart, please don't break it. And knowing that like the world just breaks our heart no matter what, right?
Yep.
And so I think another phrase that you can say to yourself is like, I am choosing to trust my partner because I want to be with them. I'm choosing to risk hurt for the sake of our connection, right? Not that she's going to hurt me, but that it is, there's not one without the other in the world, right? Like, get this, like, you are going to marry this person and hypothetically you want to be with them for as long as like your life will allow. You're going to deal with a lot of fucking hurt that comes maybe not from the hands of your partner, but also from the hands of your partner. Like, they're going to disappoint you one day.
For sure.
Maybe they're going to become ill and you have to take care of them. Maybe, a family member is going to die and you have to deal with grief and funerals. Maybe you're going to get a dog and one of you loves them and the other one fucking hates them, right? Like, I guess the partnership that you want with this person also includes this potential for hurt, includes disappointment. And so it's not about getting this clean slate sort of proof of no hurt. It's about recognizing what is there right now, which is like a willingness to be in it together, right? A trustworthiness that is constantly chosen.
Yep.
I know I'm kind of rambling, but something was in there. I said something good.
There were a lot of good things in there. That was very beautiful and profound. So
thank you. And rambling.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you can do when these feelings of jealousy come up, right, is not to like immediately run away from them, but to actually ask yourself, okay, what the story that I'm telling myself is that she's cheating on me.
Right.
What is the evidence for that?
Right.
What is the evidence against it? Right. And I'm going to guess, I can tell you based on the letter that there's like a whole ton of evidence against it. And Sierra and I said, like, not even a yellow flag around some of this, like about what's happening here.
Yeah.
And there are other questions that you can ask. Like, one of the things that my therapist and I are working on a lot is this possible or is this likely? And am I conflating the two things? Right. So is it possible that she's cheating on you? Absolutely. Everything is possible. Is it likely? No, absolutely not. Look at all the evidence. It's very unlikely that this is happening. And I do this all the time. This helps me a lot when I am catastrophizing. Yeah,
I wanted to know an example of this if you feel comfortable sharing.
Like when I just had this happen to me. I was driving home and I was listening to the news and there was a story about the congressperson in Indiana who was in a horrific car accident and she and like 4 of her staff died. And I was like, oh my God, how terrifying. Oh my God, I'm going to get in a car crash. Like, we're all just flying around in these stupid little metal boxes. Like, why are we doing
terrifying.
this? Like,
Yep.
Like suddenly I was like flooded with all of this anxiety. And I was like, okay, is it possible that I could get in a car accident and die? Yes. Is it likely? No. How many times have I been in a car and gotten to my destination safely? How many times have I been in a car accident and lived through it? Right. And it was like, yeah, of course it's possible that I could get in a horrific car accident and 4 of my closest friends and I could all die. Is it likely? Absolutely not. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time worrying about it and instead focus on the things, all of the different iterations of the fact that I've driven my car. I like hundreds of thousands of times maybe.
Yeah.
And each of those times I have arrived at my destination safely. Biking, on the other hand, not a safe thing for me, obviously.
I don't know if you've talked about this on the primary show.
Haven't I?
No, Sam broke his elbow.
I was riding my bike and I hit a patch of road that was not paved. And then I just flew over the handlebars and I broke my elbow, and it was very traumatic. I had to go in an ambulance and get opioids, and it was really a weird time in my life. So that's the joke that I made. Sorry, I had to explain it. I'm also about to get on an airplane today, so I'm going to be telling myself the likely versus possible thing quite a bit because I'm a very anxious flyer.
Yeah. You probably did already talk about it on the primary show. I don't remember, but sorry if we've already explained all of that. Yeah. Anyway, I fucking love that. Gonna be taking that into my tool belt.
For sure.
Possible versus likely. And I know your anxiety, the little anxiety beast is like, no, it's very, very likely. You know, look at all this evidence. But Sam and I are telling that little, anxiety goblin to sit down. That this evidence isn't really there. They're just clinging to it, right? Like, oh my God, look, your partner finds other people attractive. Your partner finds other people charismatic and interesting. Yep. That doesn't lessen her love for you. And I know that's hard. I know it's really hard, but you're doing the right work. You're asking the right questions. Just because you're in this situation where you're feeling so exhausted and so anxious, the fact that you're writing to us, it's actually a good thing, right? That you're facing this, that you're saying like, all of this is coming up for me and I'm not going to let it bottle up and ruin our relationship. Instead, I'm going to address it. You recognize that it's a problem.
Yep.
There are people out there who are wildly jealous and act on that jealousy and don't think that jealousy is a problem, right?
Yep. Yeah. And as you're thinking about that evidence, you can also ask yourself, is this from a dependable source? Right?
Yes.
When it comes to the evidence for, which will probably be like, I've got a feeling, or this happened to my parents, or whatever, is that a dependable source? No, that's your anxiety that's telling you that. Meanwhile, the stuff that is in the pro column, or the evidence against, is like Sarah herself, right? The text message thread that you looked at, the fact that you have this beautiful, loving relationship, right? Like those things are from dependable sources, because those are things that are not just tied to this story that you're telling yourself about the fact that this is happening. So that can be helpful too if you're like listing things and it's like, well, they're equal, but like one of them is like, I don't know, she said hi weird to me yesterday, right? Like,
that is a direct dig to me, because I'm the one that's always like, can you like make more eye contact to me when you walk in the house? And Willow's like just got home from the gym. And I was like, do you hate me? Are you leaving me?
And she's like, yes, that's what my lack of eye contact means, 100%.
Anyway, my darling, we love you. We believe in your relationship. And most importantly, we believe in your ability to face this anxiety head on and make some more sustainable choices for the future.
Absolutely.
We love you.
Thank you so much for writing.
All right, this brings us to the blind date segment of this episode. Every show, we like to shout out something that we love to set you up with. And this week, we are sending you home with
a book called Trick Mirror, Reflections on Self-Delusion, which is by Gia Tolentino. And this book came out in 2019, so it's like 3 years old. But I just got around to reading it. I absolutely loved it. It's full of 9 essays that are sort of focused on culture / feminism / there's also like a bit of like biography or memoir in it as well. Gia Tolentino is an amazing, amazing writer. And I know her from when she was at The Hairpin, which was like at the height of like blogs about like with like long essays about like pop culture and all of this stuff that I miss those days. She also was a managing editor at Jezebel for a while as well. And just has a very insightful way of looking at things that are happening in culture and sort of turning them on their head and offering a different perspective on them in a way that feels not just like intentionally countercultural, but in a way that is like really helpful and interesting and thoughtful. And reading this book made me remember why I love sort of like cultural criticism. And like made me long for the days that I had a job where I didn't do much work and could just sit reading blogs all day. So check it out. It's really great. It's super smart, super funny, super well written. Again, it is Trick Mirror, Reflections on Self-Delusion by Gia Tolentino. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. You can like us on Facebook and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Just Break Up Pod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise and tickets to our first in-person live show since 2020, happening in St. Paul, Minnesota on Friday, September 30th, 7 p.m. It's happening at Amsterdam. You can get tickets at justbreakuppod.com.
Remember to follow and subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And consider supporting us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode. If you subscribe at the $10 a month level, you also get access to a Q&A Zoom session with me and Sierra every month, which has been super fun to be doing. So consider supporting us on both of those things. If you can't or you don't want to, that is also okay. You are welcome to continue to listen. We love having you here. But this literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Wirth-Davis, a.k.a. Big Cats. Make sure to check out his music on Spotify and his latest podcast, Finding Quantum Quest. And remember, vulnerability and connection actually require us to risk being hurt. It's the same thing with change. Growth requires discomfort, right? These things go hand in hand. Our goal is not to live a life that is totally comfortable. Our goal is to risk the pain, risk the growth, to become who we truly want to be, to have connections with people we truly want to have connections with. Lean into that vulnerability, folks, and if all else fails,
just break up.